Hello everybody, welcome to the OAG RC. I am Craig, and today I thought I would take you through another one of my videos where I talk about what it takes to get into the RC hobby as a complete and utter novice. Now, I've been doing this hobby now for about the last 4 years, and hopefully I can share some of my insight with you all on what it takes to get started, because having a young 8-year-old daughter, she often wants to enjoy the hobby with me, and we typically start with beginner buggies, such as the Rising Fighter that you see at the back here, or the TT02, and this is her Neo Scorcher, which is a 4-wheel drive buggy, off-road buggy, and this one at the back here is an entry-level 2-wheel drive buggy, which is a rear-wheel drive. Now, it can be quite overwhelming when you start looking at RC cars. There are a huge amount of options, and there are lots of different things that you can do to make your life simpler. For example, you can buy a kit such as this one, which is a Tamiya model kit where you have to assemble it yourself. But you can also buy ready-to-run buggies, which will come already pre-built, such as this one, where you don't actually have to do anything other than put a battery in, turn it on, and you can go and have some fun with it. And it really depends on what point of the hobby you want to get into RC. If you want to build your own and understand how the car goes together, then you're going to have to get a kit such as this one. But if you just want to get out of the box and have some fun and rip your RC around, then you need to look at an RTR or a ready-to-run model that allows you to get into it without too much tinkering. I suppose the big question is, what does your child or your partner enjoy doing? If they enjoy building things, then you're going to want to be looking at a kit for them. If they just want to get out and have some fun in the back garden or on the driveway, then you might consider something that's a little bit easier to run and get started with, something that's already built. I don't have too many ready-to-run cars, mainly because I really enjoy the modelling side of things. So we'll try and focus very much on that. But everything we talk about is applicable on both. So you notice I've got a few more bits and pieces out on the desk in front of me. And that is, unfortunately, when you buy a kit for radio control cars, you also need some extra bits and pieces to go with it, which aren't always immediately obvious. So the first thing you need when you buy a kit, you have to decide what comes with it. And typically, you have a choice of whether you get one of these in the kit or not. This is a electronic speed controller, or ESC for short. What this does is it controls the throttle and the brake of your RC unit. So it connects up to the motor, and it will control whether or not the car accelerates or whether it decelerates. It also controls the on and off and the power from the battery. Talking about the battery, you need to get one of these. So this is a nickel metal hydride battery, which is safer for beginners, I think, than the alternative, which would be a lithium no, I can't get it right, a LiPo battery. Lithium polymer, I think, is the right term. They require a little bit more maintenance, and if I turn the camera this way, you'll see that I've got one of those currently charging over here on my charger, which is something else that you might need. And if you're going to go with a LiPo, you also need a bag such as this to charge them in, to keep them safe in case there's any fires. With nickel metal hydride, such as this one over here that I was just showing you, you don't typically need the same precautions, so that's why I'm saying it's ideal for beginners. We need one of these. This is a servo. This goes in your model and helps it to steer left and right, so it's very important that you have one of these. That and the ESC here get connected up to this, which is the receiver, and this receives the input controls from the transmitter over here, which use the wheel to turn left and right. And here there's a trigger which you pull and push forward depending on whether you want to accelerate or decelerate. All of these items are required in addition to the kit. So this kit here costs somewhere in the UK in the region of £70 to £80. One of these transmitters will cost you somewhere in the region of £30 to £40. They typically come with one of these with them. An ESC sometimes comes with the models for £80, which is a great way of buying it, but sometimes you also have to add them separately, and these can cost anywhere from, I don't know, £20 to £30. And then a servo such as this one here. This is a shorter servo. This will cost you somewhere in the region of £15 to £20 for a decent servo. So it all ends up, you're spending probably an additional, what did I just say, 40, let's say that's 20, 60, maybe £80. Oh, and you need the battery as well. That's probably another £20. You're probably spending another £100 on top of the kit. Now, if you see a model shop doing bundles, where they bundle in all this extra stuff that you need alongside the kit, that's usually a great way to go. So I'm not quite finished yet in terms of what you need to get started. And I've put some additional bits and pieces on the desk in front of me that you might find useful as you start to build your first RC car. The first thing are some tools. These are some Tamiya screwdrivers and hex wrenches and so on and so forth over here. And what these allow you to do is have the required tools that you need to build up the RC car. You'll need these to put on wheel nuts, these for standard screws. You tend to use little hex drivers like this one in order to put pinion gears into the car. Everything has a little job, and it makes it a lot easier if you buy a cheap kit like this. When I say cheap, this is probably about £15, £20 for this set of tools. And I like the Tamiya ones because they are specifically made for the Tamiya models, and they also are Japanese standard, which means that they don't tend to round off some of the screws in the model, which is great. So consider those. I have a pair of these. These are Lexan body scissors, and these help you cut out polycarbonate bodies. And a polycarbonate body is something like this, where it's a clear body shell, and use the scissors to cut it out before you paint it. If you've got a hard body model, which you've got on that Rising Fighter I showed you a minute ago, you don't need these per se because you haven't got to cut the Lexan out. But if you've got a Lexan body, one of these is really helpful to help you cut through it. These are decal stickers, sticker scissors. They help you cut out the decals. They have a nice large opening for your fingers to go through, and also a little balance there that sort of can sit into your hand or into your other fingers as you're cutting out. I find these really, really helpful because they allow you to cut the stickers out really close to the design, which means you don't have lots of excess sticker messing up your models. So they're really useful. You can use nail scissors as well, but they're not quite as comfortable to use as these are. A craft knife's always useful for many things, really. Sometimes you can use it just for opening boxes, but they're also really helpful if you've got to cut little bits of plastic off, or even some of the decals are useful to use the craft knife for that. I always find a pair of pliers very useful to have around, whether that's for holding parts of the car or getting little bits out if you're stuck getting something out of a gearbox or out of a body shell. I always find them really handy to have knocking around. So get a pair of decent pliers. And then you will need some paint. If you're painting a body, this would be specifically for the hard body, a bit like that Rising Fighter we saw a moment ago. You would use some primer to put onto the body first to help the spray can adhese, stick itself to the paint, adhese itself to the plastic. If you're using a polycarbonate body, you don't necessarily need the primer. So the primer would only be used on a hard body, not on a polycarbonate Lexan body. And then this particular paint can here would be required if you were then looking to spray the colour of your choice. And Tamiya has quite a good range of spray cans that can be used. I can't believe I missed out my favourite tool, and that is this one. This is used to snip off the plastic sprues with the parts come on. And this is great because these cutters give a nice crisp cut to the plastic and don't leave any additional bits of plastic clinging on to the gearboxes or the other parts. Really, really useful. And if I was going to specify one tool to make sure you get, it would be a pair of these for nice, neat cuts. So after all that, you are ready to lift the lid on your Tamiya RC and see what is inside the box. So let's open up this Rising Fighter and see what comes in a typical RC kit. Firstly, if you buy from the wonderful Time Tunnel Models, not sponsored, what Neil does is he sends you out this great list of things that you might want to consider, common Q&As and upgrades and spare parts, all from Time Trouble. This is a great way to start if you're getting into your RC, and I'm always pleased to see that Neil includes these in every single kit he sends out. So there's the hard body shell that we were talking about a minute ago. You get a rear wing there, and you also get a nice hard body shell to paint there. What we'll do is we'll scuff this up with a bit of sandpaper before we prime it, and then spray the layers of paint over the top. But if you're not confident doing that, the great thing with this kit is you can just bash the stickers on and get on with it. And that's why it's perfectly ideal for the beginner. We've got some wheels here, some Tamiya wheels, and you also get some tyres. The big ones with the spikes on are for the rear, and the ribbed ones are for the front. This here's the body chassis there. It's the bottom of the RC, and it's a tray which you're going to bolt all the other components to. That's the gearbox for the vehicle. So in there we're going to put some gears, which are probably in this big bag here, and that drives the power to the wheels and makes your car go forward or backwards. You then get some additional parts trees with some of the other parts that you need, such as little hubs for the wheels, or these pieces here hold the gearbox in place, and these hold some of the shocks in. In here you've got the shock absorbers, the arms that go on the front and rear of the car, the battery tray for the bottom, amongst a few other bits and pieces, motor mounts and so on and so forth. This bag here contains all of your metal parts, as well as the bumper for the front of the car. Really important. It's a great addition really for any starter RC, is they come with a great big bumper at the front that protects the car from impact, which when someone's learning out and starting out in the hobby is really important, because it actually reduces the number of repairs you've got to do on the vehicle. What else is in here I can show you? We talked about the gears a minute ago, so there's the gears that go inside the gearbox, which is really helpful. We've got some of the internal plates that go inside the gearbox to help with the build. That's the motor there. That's a 540 silver can. It's an entry-level motor, but it'll be perfectly fine for a beginner getting started in the hobby. Here we've got a servo saver. That goes on the servo that I showed you earlier and protects it in the event of an impact on the front wheels and stops it from breaking all the gears. And there's a driver figure to paint in there that you can put inside the cockpit. Some more shock absorber parts there that build up the shocks that go on the front and the rear of the Rising Fighter. Somewhere in here there'll be a bag for those as well. The bags are labelled A and B, so this is parts bag A. This is where you'll start in your build. You'll see it's got some springs for the shock absorbers, some grease to go inside the gearbox, and some other parts to help you build up the front of the RC. And then here we've got some longer parts that go into the back, into the rear gearbox. We've got the pinion that goes on the motor that helps drive it. There's also some additional motor plates and some additional parts for hubs in there, as well as some more springs for the other shock absorbers. And then right at the bottom of this box there will be an instruction manual that helps you get started. This particular one actually has an adjustment as well to it as well, which is worth taking note of. They've clearly corrected some of the instructions. An instruction manual, and then most importantly, your stickers. And the great thing about this, even though I told you a minute ago that it's really important to get some of those scissors to cut the decals out, these stickers actually come pre-cut to make it a lot easier for your first RC build. And once you've finished building your RC, you'll end up with something that looks a little bit like this. You'll have your shock absorbers built and put onto the buggy. You'll have your wheels mounted onto the car with the tyres on. If I take the top of the cover off this particular RC, you'll see inside this one there is a driver figure that's been painted and attached to the body. This body wasn't painted, the stickers were just stuck straight on the top of it, you can see there, so you don't always have to paint them up. Inside, underneath here, you've got your servo that controls the steering at the front. You can hear it if I move the wheels left and right. Under here, you've got a battery tray where your battery will go. We've got the ESC installed in this side, and we've got the receiver installed in this side. And then there's cables going to the front to control the steering and the servo. And then right at the back of this model, you've got the motor installed there in the rear, which drives the rear of the car through the gearbox. And it's all very straightforward. The beauty about building one of these yourself is that you or your sibling or your child or your brother or sister will understand exactly how it goes together. Which means should something break because they've taken it out and they've played with it on the street or they've played with it in the garden, they'll be able to understand which parts they need to buy to put it back together again. Because it is inevitable that over time these things break. And repairing them is really part of the fun of the hobby to me. I hope you found this beginner's overview useful. Please take a look at the channel. There are other videos of me building RCs. And if there's a particular model that you're interested in, maybe I've been lucky enough to have built it up before, so you'll be able to follow along on the channel as I've built it. Alternatively, if you are building an RC and you get stuck at any point, feel free to send me an email or reach out to me through the comments section on the YouTube channel. I'll do my best to help you out, because part of the great thing about this hobby is there's a whole bunch of people who are enjoying it still, reliving their youth or finding it again for the first time for many years, and enjoying what is a fantastic hobby that, for most part, is not sat in front of a screen. I've been Craig, this is the OAG. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon on the channel. Bye for now.